Somewhere inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, above the room where the world thinks the story ends, there is a space, a hollow, a void as long as a passenger jet, sealed inside 2.5 million tons of solid limestone. No corridor leads to it. No door opens onto it. In 4,500 years, not one human being has ever set foot in it. And until 2017, nobody knew it was there at all. We are not guessing about this. The void was found by physicists using particles born in exploding stars to X-ray a mountain of stone. They published it in the journal Nature, and the discovery did something that almost never happens with the most studied building on Earth. It proved that the Great Pyramid still has secrets. So the question is no longer whether there is something hidden inside. We know there is. The question is darker. What is it? And why did the builders make absolutely certain that no one would ever get in? Start with the obvious. The Great Pyramid of Giza is the most examined, measured, surveyed, and obsessed over structure in human history. It was built around 2560 BCE in the reign of the pharaoh Khufu. It stood as the tallest man-made object on the planet for nearly 4,000 years. Roughly 2.5 million blocks of stone, an average block weighing more than 2 tons. Some of the granite slabs inside it weigh 80. And for 2 centuries, archaeologists believed they had mapped every passage in it. Inside, the layout was thought to be settled. A descending corridor cut down into the bedrock, an ascending corridor climbing up into the body of the pyramid. Then the Grand Gallery, a soaring, corbelled passage, an architectural marvel in its own right. And at the top, the King's Chamber, a stark room of red granite holding a single empty sarcophagus. Below it, the so-called Queen's Chamber. 3 known rooms, a handful of corridors. That was the map. For almost 200 years, every guidebook, every textbook, every documentary told you that was all there was. But there was always a problem. A building this size, this complex, does not give up its secrets to a flashlight and a tape measure. You cannot see through stone. And so for 200 years, the inside of the Great Pyramid was mapped only where humans could physically crawl. Everywhere else, the millions of tons of solid masonry between the known passages were simply assumed to be solid. Assumed. Nobody had ever actually looked. To understand how the void was finally found, you have to leave archaeology entirely and go up, far up into the exploded remnants of dying stars. When a star detonates as a supernova somewhere across the galaxy, it flings out a storm of high-energy particles. Those particles, cosmic rays, travel for thousands of years and slam into Earth's upper atmosphere at nearly the speed of light. And when they hit, they shatter. They break apart into a shower of new particles. And one of those particles is the key to seeing inside a pyramid. The particle is called a muon. Think of it as a heavier, short-lived cousin of the electron. Muons rain down on every square meter of the planet, constantly, day and night. Right now, as you watch this, dozens of them are passing through your body every second. You feel nothing. And here is the property that matters. Muons pass through solid matter, but not equally. They slip easily through empty air. They are absorbed and slowed by dense stone, which means if you stand under something and count the muons coming through, you can tell where the rock is and where the rock is not. This technique has a name: muon tomography, muography. It was first used decades ago to peer inside volcanoes, to scan a damaged nuclear reactor. Even in the 1960s, to search a different Egyptian pyramid for hidden rooms. But the technology has come a long way. And in 2015, an international team called the Scan Pyramids Project decided to point it at the greatest pyramid of all. They placed detectors inside the Queen's chamber, in the corridors, on the desert sand outside. And then they waited for the dead stars to draw them a map. The detectors ran for months, counting muons. Tens of thousands of them falling through the Great Pyramid from every angle of the sky. And as the data piled up, a pattern emerged that the team did not expect. In one region, high in the body of the pyramid, far too many muons were coming through. More muons meant less stone. Less stone meant a gap, and the gap was enormous. When the Scan Pyramids team published in 2017, they were careful with their language. They called it simply a big void. And big is not an exaggeration. The cavity is at least 30 meters long. That is roughly the length of the Grand Gallery itself, roughly the length of a commercial airliner. It sits high in the pyramid, above the Grand Gallery, in a zone of masonry that everyone had always assumed was solid rock. A space that size, hidden for 4,500 years. Now, the team was honest about the limits. Muography tells you that a void exists. It tells you, roughly, how big and where. It does not tell you the shape of the walls. It does not tell you if the floor is flat. It does not tell you what is inside. The big void could be one long chamber. It could be a steep, inclined gallery, like a second Grand Gallery hidden above the first. It could be a series of smaller spaces that the scan blurred together. We know it is there. We do not know what it is. And here is where the ancient aliens crowd leans in close. And honestly, I understand why. Because the conventional explanation is almost aggressively boring. Many engineers believe the big void is structural, an empty relieving space, deliberately left hollow to take weight off the chambers and corridors below it, so the whole monument would not crush its own passages. The fringe view is far more thrilling. A sealed treasure vault, a hidden burial chamber, the real one. A room left intentionally unreachable because of what was placed inside. The Big Void was the headline. But it was not the only thing Scan Pyramids found. Behind the famous chevron stones on the pyramid's northern face, those great angled blocks set above the original entrance, the muons revealed a second anomaly. A smaller void. A corridor-shaped hollow just behind the masonry. And this one, they could reach. In 2023, the team threaded a tiny endoscopic camera, a wire-thin lens, through a narrow joint between the stones. And for the first time, a human eye looked into a space that had been sealed since the pyramid was built. What the camera saw was a corridor, roughly 9 meters long, about 2 meters wide. An unfinished, rough-walled passage with a pitched, gabled ceiling running into the stone and stopping. Going nowhere that anyone can yet explain. What was that corridor for? The honest answer is, we still do not fully know. The leading theory ties it to the chevrons themselves. Those angled stones are a load-bearing device. They channel the colossal weight of the masonry above out and around the entrance. The hidden corridor may be part of that same weight management system. But, and the team itself raised this, a corridor that empties a region of stone may also point toward something. An unfinished passage often leads to a finished one. And the Big Void lies not far beyond its end. Let's pull back and talk about the builders. Because the existence of a hidden void changes how we have to think about them. For a long time, popular culture imagined the pyramid's construction as a kind of brute force miracle. Endless gangs of enslaved laborers, a feat almost beyond comprehension. The archaeology tells a different story. Near the pyramids, excavators found the workers' town. Bakeries, breweries, barracks, the bones of cattle and fish hauled in to feed a skilled, organized, paid workforce. These were not anonymous slaves. They left graffiti. Inside the pyramid, in cramped spaces above the king's chamber, work gangs painted their own names on the stone. Crew names, boastful ones. One gang called themselves the Friends of Khufu. Another, the Drunkards of Menkora. These were proud teams of professionals, competing, signing their work. And that detail matters for the Big Void. Because a workforce that organized, that deliberate, did not leave a 30-meter hollow inside their masterpiece by accident. Whatever the void is, they meant it. But how did they actually do it? How do you lift a 2-ton block or an 80-ton granite slab hundreds of feet into the air with no iron, no pulleys, no powered machines? The mainstream answer is ramps. Long earthen ramps or ramps spiraling up the pyramid's flanks dragged sledges. Water poured on the sand to ease the friction, a technique we have actually seen depicted in Egyptian art. The fringe answer goes elsewhere. Lost technology. Sound. or some forgotten force used to move stone. No physical evidence supports that, but the mainstream has to admit there is no single surviving blueprint of exactly how it was done. Now we come to the strangest question. The one nobody can yet answer with certainty. If the big void is a real chamber, a deliberate, finished room, then why did the builders make it impossible to reach? No door, no corridor, no stair. A space sealed so completely that for 45 centuries, not a single grave robber, not a single archaeologist, not a single emperor or treasure hunter ever found a way in. There is precedent for sealing, of course. Egyptian tombs were always meant to be closed. The dead were sealed in with their grave goods, their burial chambers blocked with granite plugs, false passages and dead-end corridors built in to defeat robbers. Concealment was Egyptian religion, but concealment normally still leaves a way in, a blocked way, a hidden way, but a way. A space with no entrance at all is something else. A space with no entrance was never meant for the living to use. So the theories divide. Theory 1, it is purely structural. An empty pocket to relieve stress, never intended to be a room at all. No more mysterious than a hollow in a bridge. Theory 2, a security feature. A vast decoy void built to confuse and exhaust anyone tunneling toward the real treasure. Theory 3, the one that keeps people awake at night. It is a sealed chamber, finished and furnished, holding something the builders believed should pass into eternity untouched. Not hidden from robbers, hidden from time itself. And there is one more reason the void unsettles people. The Great Pyramid has always invited a particular kind of thought. Its base is aligned to true north with staggering precision. Its proportions encode mathematical relationships that feel uncanny. Its sheer scale and accuracy have made it for centuries the favorite evidence of everyone who believes a lost civilization or a non-human intelligence had a hand in its design. A newly discovered, unreachable chamber pours fuel on exactly that fire. Because the mainstream can say what the void probably is, it cannot yet prove it. Before we close, let me tell you what happens next. Because here is the thing about the big void. We are not going to leave it alone. The same physics that found it is now being aimed at it with far greater precision. A new project is planning a far larger muon telescope. Detectors many times more powerful than the ones used in 2017, positioned around the pyramid to image it from multiple angles at once. The goal is no longer just to confirm the void. It is to map it, to resolve its true shape, to learn whether the floor is flat, whether the walls are dressed, whether it is one chamber or many, and crucially, whether anything inside it is dense enough to show up as a shadow in the particle count. But here is the limit. Even a perfect scan will only ever give us a shape, a shadow, an outline of empty space. To truly know what is inside the big void, someone has to get a lens in there. And that is the hard part. Drilling into the Great Pyramid is not done lightly. This is one of the most precious objects humanity owns. The plan, when it comes, will be the same patient method used at the chevrons. Find a natural joint, a gap between existing stones, and thread a camera through it without harming a single block. When that camera finally turns on, inside the big void, we will be looking at something no eyes have seen since the age of the pharaohs. Here is what I keep coming back to. We thought the Great Pyramid was finished with us. We thought after 200 years of measuring and mapping and excavating that the most studied building on Earth had nothing left to say. And then particles born in the death of distant stars passed through 4,500 years of solid stone and showed us a room we never knew was there. That should change how we think about everything we believe is settled. The big void is a reminder that the line between what we know and what we assume is thinner than we like to admit. For 2 centuries, the inside of this pyramid was drawn on maps as solid stone. Not because anyone had checked, but because nobody could. How many other monuments have we declared fully understood simply because we ran out of ways to look? The void was always there. We just could not see it. The Great Pyramid is not a closed book. It is a sealed one. And somewhere inside it, above the Grand Gallery, in the dark, there is a space the length of an airliner that has waited, empty or not, since before the first word of written history was set down. Before history, there were builders who knew how to keep a secret. And the greatest of their secrets is still up there, still sealed, still waiting in the stone. If this episode shifted something in your head about how much is still hidden inside even our most famous monuments, about how recently we gained the power to see through stone at all, then know that the Great Pyramid is only the beginning. There are sealed spaces, unscanned tombs, unexplored chambers under temples and cities all over the ancient world. An entire hidden architecture waiting for the right particle, the right lens, the right question. If you want to come along as we look inside, subscribe to Before History. Because the further back we look, the more we find still waiting in the dark. See you in the next one.